I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, October the 30th. It's Halloween time, guys. Brought to you in part by Zactran. Stress opens a gate for bovine respiratory disease. Slam it shut with Zactran. Remember to observe your 35-day withdrawal period after treatment. For more information, go to Zactran.com or talk with your BI representative. An unexpected recovery. I don't think anybody really saw us bouncing back, and we haven't recuperated all the losses that we had last week, but it's been a lot of it. I'll tell you what, we've gotten back about $3 on our nearby both live and fed cattle or feeder cattle futures, but you know they're expiring, so that doesn't really matter. Your biggest traded months are the next ones up. November feeders, we've gained $6 this week on November feeder cattle. December live cattle, we've gained $4.50 this week. So that's a great recovery on that. We haven't quite got all of it back in the cash market yet, especially in the northern plains. They're going to be trading at quite a bit of a discount to what your southern plains is, because there's just tight supplies of market-ready cattle in the southern plains, especially in Texas. And who'd have thought that? It hasn't been that long ago that we were talking about your heavy carcasses in Texas and how we were going to get through those, but now all of a sudden we got tight supplies, but our carcass weights are still heavy. So that doesn't completely make sense, but nevertheless, that's the deal. Your north has simply gotten where they've sold too many cattle with time. And guys need to think about that. You know, it sounds really good on a down market when the guy kind of gives you what everybody else is getting, but whenever you sell them 3 or 4 weeks out, then there you are, and they've got a lot of cattle bought with time on them, and they're not going to give up the market that they're getting in the southern plains, and guys have to think about that. I did hear that a lot of your auction cattle, and they still have fat cattle auctions in the Midwest, guys. There's some in Nebraska, some in Iowa, probably your best ones in South Dakota there at Yankton, but they have several fat cattle auctions, and a lot of your auction fed cattle got on the truck and went south this week down to Kansas, and some of them even as far as Texas. And we thought that was a crazy deal when we were so backed up in Texas with heavy cattle and sending them. We had some feedlots that were sending those cattle all the way up into South Dakota to sell them at auction and getting along pretty darn good on it. But you know, an auction is an excellent way to sell cattle. I wish we sold more of them that way, but it is a little inefficient to move that many big heavy fed cattle through an auction facility, a brick and mortar sale, but whenever the timing's right, they're still there, and it's still a viable deal. But we've got a lot of uncertainty in the market that's going on. Yes, we've been gaining ground this week, but we really had the rug pulled out from under us last week. But a lot of uncertainty over the COVID. We're seeing spikes now coming around, and there's a lot of cases of it. Well, they're doing a lot of testing, but there's a lot of cases up there, and we are starting to see some of our hospital beds filling up. We're not seeing as many people dying, or as high a percentage of people dying, but it's likely going to impact some of our processing facilities at some point again, and there's a lot of uncertainty about that. There's a lot of uncertainty about China. You know, they've been buying a lot of ag products from us. That was part of the deal. They were supposed to fill a quota that President Trump had set up with them. Of course, that was before we had all this COVID and the Wuhan disease and everything that come out. But some people were actually upset that we were selling so much of our grain to China at depressed prices. But it improved the market quite a bit. But now we're starting to come off of that, because China's kind of got their fill, and they've backed off of their orders of grains, and now we're seeing our Chicago Board of Trade grain futures dropping off fairly significantly, but not nearly as low as what they were kind of working through all summer long. But the election is something else that's going forth, and none of us know what's going to happen on this deal. I mean, we're going to be up all night Tuesday, but Tuesday night we're probably not going to find out who our next president is, and it'll probably be later in the week before we ever find out for sure. But it's going to be a scary deal. I tell you what, if Biden gets in with the Green New Deal and wanting to cut back on these confined animal feeding operations and a lot of this climate change stuff and cutting back on our fossil fuels and all that, there's no telling what's going to happen. I think a lot of people are more comfortable with Trump because we know kind of what we're going to get. We were real happy with the economy and everything before the Wuhan come through, but now we're expecting a big, fast recovery from that. But Joe Biden says we're in for a dark winter. That doesn't sound very exciting to me. But you guys just have to make your own choice, and we'll just see where the chips fall. But that is putting a lot of uncertainty in our markets, especially our stock market, and nobody really knows what's going to happen. Some little bit of cattle politics you guys have probably seen. Now you've got two divisions there within NCBA, and not necessarily the national NCBA, but with your state affiliates. You've got a bunch of state affiliates that are pushing the Cattle Market Transparency Act that Deb Fischer championed and introduced, and then Vicky Hartzler introduced in the House, and it's going to give some flexibility, but it is going to mandate minimum cash trade in all your different regions, and try to loosen up some of the confidentiality where we get more information coming out, and make the packers tell us what they have scheduled for slaughter for the next 14 days. All really, really good tools to help our fat cattle sellers try to get some market position back, and it's actually going to help the cow-calf producers and your backgrounders more than it's going to help your feedlots, because that one price, that one weekly fat cattle price, is so important for the rest of the guys down the line, you know, on lighter weight cattle, and it's very, very important. We've got to be able to maintain some type of market position. And then you've got another big group of NCBA state affiliates that are backing the voluntary plan that NCBA has come up with, and they're calling it the 75% plan, for lack of a better term. And the main word in that whole plan is voluntary. You know, how do you get your packers to do something voluntarily? You know, if they wanted to do it, they would do it. You know, they say we don't want to have any government involvement in our cattle business. Really, they're involved in everything from inspection to grading to you know, the different rules that's going on. The packers are trying to make us follow more BQA rules and different things like that all the time. You know, why not have a rule in there to try to save the industry a little bit and get some market position back up? But you know, I'm a little biased. I'm a big supporter of the Cattle Market Transparency Act, and I support all those state affiliates that are in support of that. Now we've got NCBA's kind of buddy state affiliates, and mostly in the Southern Plains, but they're more for your corporate feeders and for the packers, because they don't want to push the mandatory minimum trade requirement, because your packers are not going to like it. And then you know, it may affect some of these formulated contract deals that they have with their sweethearts, and that's going to cause a little upheaval, and it probably will. Yeah, maybe that's a good thing. But we did see that they had 2 meetings in the state of Florida, and why they decided to do it in Florida, I'll never know. But 2 meetings in the state of Florida by 3 of your smaller trade association groups that are a little more outspoken, but they were going to get together. It was going to be Zoomed, and they have a lot of people there on site. One of them were going to be at Okeechobee, Florida, at the livestock market there. It's a good, viable sale barn down in that country there. But they were going to have those, and they were going to get together and talk about the issues that are affecting the demise of the cattle markets. And I might say that some of these smaller trade association groups have been bitter enemies in the past, but they've decided to get together and see what they could do about it. And one of the things that they're going to talk about is the likelihood of a referendum on the beef checkoff. And another thing they're going to try to talk about is a minimum cash requirement. and going to talk about a lot of things that have to do with vertical integration within our industry. And we just don't want to see this industry turn into the hogs or the chickens. And it's quickly going that way. We're going step for step right in the way. But they had invited NCBA to come in and join in, and they kind of lent a olive branch out there to see if they wanted to be involved in it. NCBA sent out a message that they would not participate, and they were not going to be involved and really get into a discussion with these people that they call activists. And I guess you're an activist if you think that maybe perhaps we should take a look at this tax. Really, your beef checkoff. It's $1 everywhere. It's more than that in some places. But the way that they are spending that money, and after 35 years, maybe it's time to regroup and look at the ways we can do that. The main one that bothers me is we can't try to fight off this fake meat that's coming through, because there's a rule in there that says you can't disparage a competing protein. Well, that was fine when it was your neighbor that was raising hogs or chickens, and we didn't want to get into a deal where said ribeyes are better than pork chops and things like that, because that doesn't help anybody. But when it's a fake product, an alternative protein, if that's what you want to call it, we need to get those dollars. So you've got NCBA out there, and they're almost like the mafia. They're strong-arming these smaller state affiliates into going in with their voluntary program, and basically they're fighting against a large percentage of your grassroots cow-calf producers and backgrounders, and they're armed with those folks' money. They try to say that they're not in complete control of the beef checkoff dollars, but you and I both know that they are. Makes up 70% of their budget. And they say that they speak for all cattle producers, and they say that they do, but their membership is a very, very small percentage of cattle producers, and the beef producers. And I've told you guys before, people that produce cattle and people that produce beef are two different things, and they're likely in competition with each other if you've seen what they've done to us through the Holcomb plant fire and through the COVID. But your packers have so much influence over that, and it's just the fox in the hen house kind of a deal. And I just it's kind of disgusting that NCBA said they will not participate in those discussions with these activists. It kind of reminds me of the way that Joe Biden just will not answer any questions about whether or not him and his son were taking money from foreign interests and whether or not they've sold out to China. They just sull up and they won't talk about it. I guess they don't have to, because they know they've got more money than any of these other associations. They're armed with a lot of dollars of the people that they're fighting against, and I tell you what, that just seems like a crying shame to me. But you guys think about what you want to on that, but just kind of telling you what I see out there. But look at the board for Thursday. October live cattle futures are up 42 cents at 106.27. December up 3.30. So there's your extended limit. So this time it's on the high side, and it's good to see that. We didn't reach a limit, but that's more than it could go previously on the first day. But up $3.30 at 107.97. That looks pretty good. We had that there just a few weeks ago, if you remember that. Going out from there, it was up 90 cents to up 267. So banner day on your live cattle pits. October feeder cattle up $1.27, 136.45. November up $1.82 at 135.72. You going out from there, it was unchanged on your farthest out traded month, which didn't have any trade at all, to up 165 on something that was a little more current. But you look at your grains, they've settled way back since we've seen the China orders kind of slow down a little bit. December corn is now under $4 a bushel, which they were saying just a few days ago they thought it was going to be $5 a bushel. Nearby beans are around $10.50 a bushel, so that's a lot less than what they were just not too long ago. But look at your fat cattle trade here late in the week. Iowa selling about 1,500 head at 103. That's a live price in Iowa. That's how much of a discount the guys up in the Northern Plains are getting. That would be steady to $2 lower than last week when our boards gained $4.50 on your most traded December there. The dress trade out of Iowa from 158 to 163, but mostly 160. That's a full $4 lower. Nebraska 4,200 head on Thursday, 103 to 104, which is steady to $1 lower. They had a few dress sales at 162, but not a lot of dress sales quoted, and that's still $2 lower. Now Kansas and Texas steady with the bulk of last week at 106. So and you and I both know that cattle aren't as good. They don't grade as well. They most likely don't have a dressing percentage as well. They're not as good at cattle. You guys up in Iowa and Nebraska, the ones that blow their brains out on these feeder cattle. The guys in Texas and Kansas, buy them out of Mexico or the Southeast or wherever they can get them, that'll hedge, and now they're getting $2 to $3 more than they are. But it's just because we got slaughter capacity down there and they're short of cattle, so that's just kind of the way it ebb and flows there. Box beef cutout values: choice cuts 207.32 up $1.53, select 191.23 up 165. Your slaughter has been pretty disappointing. A lot of it due to the slick roads in the Southern Plains. They weren't able to get some of those early shifts completed, but 464,000 through Thursday. That's 16,000 less than just last week and 1,000 less than the same week a year ago. Your actual slaughter information come in for the week ending October 17th. Had our average dressed steer carcass weights a pound heavier than the previous report at 929 pounds. Man, they're getting big. But let's talk about feeder cattle. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Thursday at 134.84, up 48 cents. You look at your CME cash feeder cattle index, it's sitting at 134.34 on your latest available. That's about $2 under what October feeder cattle ended the day on Thursday. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're not down pretty good, because they have to align here on the last traded day. But let's talk about some of your big sales around the country, and they weren't all that big because continued weather problems. But Farmers and Ranchers Livestock, Salina, Kansas, 1,500 head there, steady to as much as $7 higher. And I tell you what, the board finally caught up with the cash market, or pushed the cash market, and it happened more so here on Thursday than it did earlier in the week when it was positive, but people just didn't believe it was going to continue that way. But look at this quote on some big steers in Salina, Kansas. Very impressive. 56 head, 971 pounds at 139.35. That's $5 higher than your index, which is based on an 800 pounders, and those weighed 971. Ogallala 2,700 head, $2 to $8 higher in Ogallala, off a good sale there. Mitchell, South Dakota had 7,200 head. Your big feeding cattle were steady to $5 higher, and that's what they kind of feature there. A lot of warmed up, backgrounded cattle. But look at this quote on some big, heavy near beers here. 55 head, 1,025 pounds at 136.10. How about Belfouche, South Dakota? Belfouche livestock market, 7,100 head, not reported anywhere else but here, other than what your market pays for. But I looked at your automated market report. Looks to me like your best tested weights of calves sold $2 to $5 higher for sure. Look at your best tested weights on calves. Had 1,066 head of 4-weight steer calves, average 463, 173.43. That was up about $1.70 on your weighted average price. Had nearly 2,200 head of 5-weight steers at one sale. That's amazing to have that many 5-weight steer calves, and they'd all be good. That's up there in that country. They got those big boned stout calves, and people from the Midwest love to go out there and bid on those cattle. But I mean, as good a cattle as you find anywhere. But on the 5-weight steers, average 547 at 154.39. That was up right at $2 compared to the weighted average from last week. 1,226 head of 4-weight heifers, average 457 at 147.37. That was up nearly $5. and 1,025 head of 5-weight heifers averaged 538 at 139.23. That was up about $1.30 there. Now I want to do something that I never do, and I wouldn't hurt anybody. I promise I wouldn't hurt anybody. I've been to this particular auction. I love the ownership there. Spent a couple of days around there here just a year or two ago, and I like the cattle out of there. I've got a neighbor that buys cattle out of there over there south of Amarillo. He loves the cattle. He thinks it's the best secret in the world. But I'm going to tell you about some cattle that didn't sell very well, in hopes that you guys will get on DV Auction and pay attention and look around a little bit and buy some of these cattle, you guys that are in the market for some of these cattle. But Wilcox Livestock Auction in Wilcox, Arizona, it's not the end of the earth, guys. It's down there in southeastern Arizona. You could throw a rock to New Mexico almost. But they've got hard, little dried out desert calves in there, and I'm telling you what, they've got some good quality on them. Had a long string of ranch calves in there, and like I said, I hate to call anybody out, but I'm here to tell the market, and I think low markets take care of themselves. You talk to any good auction owner, a cheap market will take care of itself. As soon as word gets out, there'll be somebody there. I'm wanting somebody to go in here and sop up some of these calves that are way too cheap. But I had a contact friend of mine send me a message, and he said it was hard to watch. He said they had a long string, several weight groups. I'm going to give you the largest, but several of these calves in there, right in off the ranch, weaned 30 to 45 days, all black, had their shots, good enough to go anywhere. I mean, good enough kind of cattle, and they were them hard desert cattle. I tell you what, you couldn't kill one of them. And at Wilcox Livestock Auction, there was 90 head of them, weighed 563 at $130. You guys get on to dvauction.com next Thursday, and you tune in to Wilcox Livestock Auction. You can view and bid that sale right there, or you can call in there, and Sonny will get you set up with an order buyer or something. But that's a damn shame. Like I said, I got a friend that buys cattle. He runs them just not too far from where I live there. I see those cattle, they never back up. Tell you what, they're hardy cattle. And that's just a damn shame, and I brought that out. Like I said, I never want to do that, but it just comes to the point, you can't just talk about the highs all the time. But I am going to talk about the highs to end the report here, and it's now sponsored by Zach Tran. Your Zach Tran top quote of the day comes out of Valentine Livestock, Valentine, Nebraska, way up and out there in Nebraska, 4,600 head there. Their market was steady to as much as $10 higher. I'm going to give you two quotes. You pick which one's the highest. I can't decide. 76 head, 458-pound steer calves with a very attractive flesh condition, i.e. they were on the thin side, bring 190.50. And they belong to Ken and Roxy Fox there, but really nice cattle. They gave them a fair weigh up, a fair flesh condition, and look at the way they sold. And then Dan Dent had some yearling steers in there. Yeah, there's been a sighting of some yearling steers and a big string of them. 136 of them weighed 771 at 152.50. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.